All right, let's talk about components finally. And components are these reusable elements that you can have, and you can use them over and over. You can even make copies of them that will take effects from other things. So let's look at what that is first of all. So you'll notice here we have this thing we built here. And when I grab it, you'll notice up here it says, and I'm in the design tab, right? So it says component main, right? And you also see this default state. So you see that components can have states. But if I click on the one next to it, it says component instance, right? And now, so a component is just this reusable thing, and you'll actually find them in, so you might be in your layers, right? But if we go over here and change to our document assets, you'll see all the things I have are here. So if I wanted to pull out another one, well, there's two ways. I could grab this, right? And if I just, kind of make a copy of it with the option click, boy, this one's hard to get, right? You'll see that it's just an instance. Go ahead and delete that. Or I could just go find it in here and grab it out and put it here, and that's an instance. Now the difference between the main and the instance. So let's say you for some reason deleted your main, right? That's okay. You needed to edit this. You could grab any instance and say, click on this little where is it? This right here, right? This little plus, this button here, and that'll bring up your main one to use. I just want to put that all back. Okay, so I'm just Command-Zing to get back, so I have the main one right here. Now you saw that when I added that transition to the main one, it actually worked over here in the first video, right? So anything you change on this main component will flow down to your other ones, as long as it hasn't been overridden in some way. And so on this, say I wanted to change the color of this instance, and so I say, well, for a fill, let me have this red here. Notice they all turned red. Let me hit Command-Z. Now, what if I just wanted this instance to be red? Well, I'm going to go ahead and grab it and just give it a fill of red. And now notice that it didn't change there, right? It only changed there. So what if I wanted to make the, whoops, let's see what's going on here. So that's all you need to know. I think you don't need to use it more complicated. You see that you could kind of override things and stuff. I don't want to get too far into the components there. Okay, so that's just a component and building them so that you can reuse them. But what you saw is that we had these states, right? So here I have, how do we make a component first of all? So I built this button here, or I didn't build it, I downloaded a button, or I grabbed a button from a UI kit, right? And now I want to make this a component. So I'm just going to go ahead and select everything. Now there's two ways. I can either hit plus up here next to component, or I usually just use Command K because I use this a lot and I like to use short keys. And there it is. And so now notice you have this kind of new object here. It's got a green highlight on it. It's got a little thing on it. And if I go look in my thing, like here I am, in my artboard, all I have is a hover component. I want to see all the things that are in it, right? I can open them up and see all the things that are in it so that I can change things or do other things or move things, order around. But really what we want is, the important thing is that we can add these states, right? And so this first one, we're just going to add a hover state. So now when I hover over this, right, buttons usually have some kind of right, to change color, some kind of indication, some feedback that something action is going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit this little plus button right here. Now I can do a new state, but automatically it has built into it that you can have a hover state and a toggle state. So toggle state would be like if I keep clicking on it, it changes. So I'm going to go ahead and just say hover state. I'm going to leave the name at hover state, right, just to know it's a hover state. And so now I've got these two versions here, and I can kind of do things with them depending on which one I have clicked, right? So I want this hover state, and I'm just going to kind of double click into it so it kind of just jumps into my component and make sure I just have the button shape. And I'm going to give it a fill of, I don't know, I'm just going to take any color, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to grab the text here and just give it a fill of white. Oops, keep double, if you just double click, you'll get into groups and things. So this icon, what is that? That's that. I don't want that. Whoops. Command-Z is always your friend, right? So maybe I want to make sure I get all these pieces and give them white. I missed this one thing here, right? White. Okay, so now when I have it, I go, oh, look, here's that. So a component has these multiple states that it can hold. So I have a default state, I have a hover state. And so by default, when you have a hover state, right, obviously it works on hover in interactivity. So when I go and play with this, right, I hover over it, and there is my download, right? So that's super handy. Now, once again, remember this is the main. So once you build a button interaction, you may want to make a copy, right? So now I have an instance, and I'll call this, I don't know, upload, right? Maybe I'll take this stuff and I'll, whoops, do this, there we go. Right, and so now I have an upload button. Now I got to check the hover state. It still says download. I got to go rebuild that part of it, right? So I'm going to say upload, right? But you don't have to reprogram that hover ability anymore, right? And right, so here we have default states. Now when I do this, whoops, got to have this artboard selected. Right, download, upload, same thing. Now this is the main, remember? So if I wanted to go ahead and change that color of my buttons, right? And I put it back in default state, make sure I have this selected, hit play, blue, blue, right? So we see how the main and instances work together, how you can do them reusable, but you can also have different states. So that's what I'm going to go into next. I'm going to build us different states instead of just hover, and program some of the, not program, but kind of set the things different, right? So once again, I'm going to make this into a new component. I hit Command K. I could have went up here. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm just going to leave it at new state instead of toggle state, and I'll call this downloaded, right? That's good enough, because that's what I'm gonna do. I'll click the button and I'm gonna give them feedback that it's downloaded or whatever. And so now, right, in this state, I want to say that it's downloaded, first of all. Right, now the button's a little, I need to make this a little bigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and, whoops. Again, I gotta double click to make sure I have just the thing I want. And this I want to, this is the only thing that I don't like about components. It's kind of hard to add items in and out of them, but I'm gonna just delete that. I'm gonna get this, I'm actually gonna hit Command X. I'm gonna make sure I'm in my component so that it actually pastes in there. You notice it's kind of, now it's part of this green thing, so it's in it, but I just need to actually move it to kind of where it goes. Maybe I wanna get my button, and I wanna change its fill now to whatever color we like, right? Let's get a nice bluish color, right? And default state here. So now when I push play and I click on it, nothing happens, right? Because I didn't set up any prototype anything to go from state to state. So what I have to do is mosey over to our component here, right? And first I have to pick something. Now I could just click on this and that will just add an empty state, or I could just go up here and hit plus over here, right? And obviously, right, what am I gonna wanna do? Well, I have choices here. I can make it a hover one, drag, tap. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna use these ones, but you could, but we'll leave it at tap, right? We're gonna click the button and it'll change. So what type do we wanna do? Well, we have these choices here. We can do a simple transition, but I think what we really wanna do is an auto animate. And so an auto animate will generally kind of go between states, and I'll show you a more, I'll make a separate video for the next thing of a kind of crazier use of auto animate, but I generally just always use for these types of things auto animate. Now what do I want to animate to? Well, I want to go to this state called downloaded. So I click on that right there, right? And so now when I click here and I do that, right, you see the button grows and changes colors. That's it. I want to go back. Now I could have made this a toggle state, but I didn't. But instead I'm going to go ahead and click on the second state, add something, an interaction here. It's going to be tap, it's going to be auto automate. I want to go to the default state, right? And there it is. So now I can go click it, click it, click it, click it, click it, click it, right? So there it is. That's components. That's kind of complex, but we're even going to get a little more complex as we make something more complicated. Now the good thing about this is it's standalone, right? I need to go make another one of these. I just go put it on my page. There's times where we have to build multiple artboards for auto animate, which I'll show you next.